What's going on, GBA fans? My name is Berk, and today I'll be bringing the Week 5 of the Pick'em crew for GBA Season 7. And unfortunately, like last week, it is just going to be by myself. Matty is extraordinarily busy, and unfortunately, we're just not able to find time to record together. So it is just going to be me again. Hopefully next week we'll be back to normal, but some of you like listening to me, and hopefully you'll enjoy listening to me again this week. So anyway, Week 4. As you can see on the screen, we all did actually pretty well this week. The lowest differential that we had was 4-4 by Spastic and Aster, but everyone else, lots of 7s and 1s, some 6 and 2s, 5 and 3 there, and all of us, except for, of course, Bill, going positive after Week 4. So moving on to Week 5, the first match we have is the Milwaukee Sawsbucks versus the New Orleans Pelipers, and most of us have the New Orleans Pelipers chosen, with 4 people locking on the New Orleans Pelipers. I think the reason for this is fairly obvious. Most of us have John picked. If you look at how the coaches have been performing, John has been doing relatively well. Yes, he did lose last week to Cooper in a very, very, very narrow 1-0 loss, but he's still been playing pretty well, and Steve, unfortunately, has not. And then you look at the team matchup, and John just has like the plethora of threats that Steve is really going to struggle with. The first thing that jumps to mind, as always, is Tapu Bulu. You look at Steve's team, and he doesn't really have anything that wants to deal with it. I understand Kartana is a thing that does resist 4 times the Horn Leech and can take advantage of the grassy terrain, but Tapu Bulu is very easy to just kind of throw on a hidden power fire, and Kartana, due to its extraordinarily low special defense, will die to 1 hit. And then nothing else really wants to deal with Tapu Bulu, because I don't really think he has grass resists outside of that. So I think John has a very favorable team matchup, and as well as I think John's been playing a little bit better, so I feel like John is going to be able to take this one. Then moving on to the second match of the week, we have the San Diego Chimchargers versus the Alola Athletic. And again, most of us have the San Diego Chimchargers picked, with Spastic. He wants to root for the underdog, and with Envy versus Callum, I feel like the matchup is definitely in Envy's favor, because it is going to be a little bit of the weather wars going on, with Envy trying to use rain, Callum trying to use sand, and in a war between rain and sand, unfortunately, rain kind of wins out. Envy can easily come out on top of the weather wars. Plus, you look at a lot of the you just look at Callum's team, and he doesn't really have much that wants to deal with a rain team. I get there is a Shaman, but ice coverage is very common on things like Kingdra, and Pelipper obviously gets stabbed, no miss hurricanes. So looking at team matchup, I feel like Envy has it. He's also been playing really, really well after week 1. And I feel like Envy is going to be able to pull out the win this week. Up next, we've got the San Francisco Arcaniners versus the Tampa Bay Luxrays, and we are fairly split on this one, at least more split than most matches. Most of us choosing the Tampa Bay Luxrays, a few picking George and the San Francisco Arcaniners, Blue actually locking for the San Francisco Arcaniners. Now, I'm picking Mono in the Tampa Bay Luxrays, mostly because I have a lot of confidence in Mono that he's going to be able to win this match. Mono is an extraordinarily good battler, and that's not to say anything bad about George. George won last season, and he is obviously a very strong contender, but Mono's undefeated so far. He's going in with a ton of momentum in the 5th week, and I just feel like Mono is going to be able to give George his 2nd loss of the season. As far as team matchup, Jirachi is definitely not going to be easy for George to deal with. It's not an easy mon for anyone to deal with, but Jirachi, with the right moveset, can hit a ton of things on George's team. Buzzwole as well, it's just a huge threat. Obviously, Togekiss resists both stabs. I think resists both stabs 4 times, but it's not going to want to take a Poison Jab or Thunder Punch, especially from like a banded Buzzwole. But then you look at George's team. George has obviously the Mew, which can do pretty much anything. Togekiss definitely looking like a very, very strong threat against Mono's team. And then you look at his newly acquired Entei, and while Mono does have Zygarde, which deals with it pretty well, and a Miltank, if George can play around those two well enough, it can put in a lot of work. you know, George can definitely win this one. This one for me is more of a toss-up, but I am going to give it to Mono and the Tampa Bay Luxrays. So up next, we have the Pittsburgh Piratas versus the Borussia Donphan. And we all have Lars chosen, for the biggest reason being that Tup hasn't been playing this season very well. He's currently 0-4, and Lars has a really, really good team. Especially with the fact that Lars has Magirna, and almost nothing on Tup's team wants to deal with Magirna. Granted, nothing on most teams wants to deal with Magirna, because that's how good Magirna is. And with a really strong team, coupled with the fact that Lars has been performing better as a coach than Old Man Tup currently this season, I feel like Lars is going to be able to pick up the win this week. So up next, we've got the Detroit Steelings versus the San Jose Sharpedos. I'm going with the San Jose Sharpedos. I know, surprise, surprise, but most of us picking the Detroit Steelings. This is, again, a very toss-up kind of match. I think either team can really have it. Tom, with his new pickups, can really threaten Crimson's team. You look at just Darmanitan. Darmanitan is just a gigantic threat. I know the Crimson is a slow bro, but still, it's a Darmanitan, and Darmanitan kills things. But then you look at Crimson's team, and Crimson has a Volcarona, and if you look at Tom's team, Tom has a pretty big fire-shaped hole in his team where he's going to lack being able to deal with Volcarona unless he has some really careful planning around it. So it's going to be a very interesting match to watch. They've both been playing well so far this season. Crimson doing very well. Tom, I think, also doing well. I feel like it's anyone's game. I am going to vote for the San Jose Sharpedos, but at the same time, Crimson has just proven like everyone wrong going into the season, and I definitely see that he could also win as well, but I am going to go with San Jose Sharpedos. Next up, we've got the Utah Jasmine versus the San Francisco Giants. We are very split on this match. Some of us voting for the Utah Jasmine, some of us voting for the San Francisco Giants. And I think the reason this match is so split is if this was still Cooper in control of the team, I feel like this would be a lot less split of a vote, because Cooper has been playing really well so far this season, but he has to drop out, and now Necro Stevo is taking over the team, and people don't know how good Necro is. But I know, I've watched Necro play in the PPL. I know how good he can be given the right team. It is going to be very difficult for him because he's taking over a team that he has not drafted. And just like with Mono last season, when you get a team that you didn't draft, it is actually very hard to play with. Necro's kind of being thrown into the same situation where he has a team he didn't draft, never played with before, whereas Gio has been using his team. I think he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable with it, and he could definitely pick up another win here. But I am going to go with Necro Stevo and the Utah Jasmine. I still look at things like Zapdos, and it's just a gigantic threat to Gio's team. He just doesn't have really much for it, and the things that do get easily pivoted on by Zapdos. And I know that Cooper liked to run defensive Zapdos, but I could see Necro being, a little bit different, running some offensive Zapdos, which could punch some really big holes in Gio's team. I am going to go with Necro and the Utah Jasmine. I think he's going to really try to show us that while he is new to the season, he is going to be a big contender for Season 7. Up next, we have the Free State Toracats versus the Florida Gators. Most of us had the Florida Gators picked, except for the confusion actually going with the Free State Toracats. I'm going with the Florida Gators. For one reason, I think Gator has been playing a little bit better this season. You can see it in the record. Gator is still, I think, kind of new to the format, just as well with Duncan, but Gator has been using this team well, and he's just had these massive threats to Duncan's team. You'll look at something like Heatran. Heatran is a giant threat, actually, offensive Heatran, to the Free State Toracats. Duncan also doesn't really appreciate something like webs on his side of the field, so he's going to have to definitely play around that. But then you look at Duncan's team, and Weavile, it's like there's not many switch-ins on Duncan's team to a Weavile. Obviously, Pyukumuku can take the hits, but Pyukumuku really can't do much back. It's a Pyukumuku. So it's definitely going to be an interesting match. I feel like because Gator has been playing a little bit better this season, and he's just a really good battler in general, I'm going to say Gator picks up the win this week. And the last match of the week, we have the St. Louis Rampardos versus the Philadelphia Scissors. And most of us are going with the Philadelphia Scissors, a few of us picking the St. Louis Rampardos. I am going with the Philadelphia Scissors because, again, just like I've said in the past few matches, Chimp has been playing pretty well this season. Dan, unfortunately, has kind of been lagging a little bit behind, but he is really trying to get back into the season, pick up some more wins. But Chimpact, you just look at the team matchup, and I'm going to bring this up every single week. No one has switch-ins for like half his team. And Dan having what I consider a little bit more of a bulkier, slower team, because he doesn't really have this, out of the gate fast speed tiers aside from Terrakion, kind of. And the fact that Dan's team is bulky, Chimp's team has a whole crap ton of wall breakers, plus Doug Trio for trapping Victini. Dan's going to have to really plan around that. So I feel like Chimp can definitely pick up the win this week, and I am going to go with Chimpact and the Philadelphia Scissors. So that is going to wrap up the Week 5 Pick'em Crew for GBA Season 7. As always, leave your picks down in the comment section below. We'd love to see, who are you picking? Who you locking for? Make sure to keep track of your own overall and locks of the week, and then at the end of the season you can see how well you do. I know a lot of us are doing much better than how we thought we were going to do in the beginning of the season, except for Bill. But this week we got a lot of close, I think going to be very interesting matches, so we shall see. But that is all I got for today. My name is Berk. I'll see y'all next time.